This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those that tell stories of heroes and madmen, and women who seek to make the world a better place by any means necessary. These are the stories of Assembled. Nuff said. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. I do apologize to those on video because I do keep on fading in and out here because I have a backdrop. And the backdrop to me sometimes blends into who I am and I become one with the universe. It is my tribute to the Fantastic Four and Marvel's own Invisible Woman. Pardon me. So as is our custom now, we had a great series, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now we get to the final end cap for it, which is the Assembled discussion. Everything you need to know about the making of this hard-hitting, high-flying series. Season 1, Episode 2 of Assembled. Just found out that Episode 3 will be Black Widow, based on the movie. This says the director of Assembled, so just not to get it twisted, the director of Assembled is Brad Baru. Writer was Mekan Leon. Stars Nate Moore, Zoe Zagelhout, Carrie Skoglund, sorry, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Starr, Malcolm Spelman, Daniel Bruhl, Wyatt Russell, Clay Benet, Michael Crow, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Brad Martin, Florence Kasumba, Trevor Watterson, Ray Chan, Emily Van Camp, Aaron Kellyman, Eric Levine, and Don Cheadle as James Rhodes /Rhodey. Well, Kevin Feige doesn't get listed here, but actually, now I'm trying to think, was Kevin Feige in this? Man, I don't know. I don't remember. Man is so busy. He is a busy man. You know, trying to stamp out the legacy of Marvel Television right now. But that's something that if you tune in to Capes and Lunatics or Super Connectivity this week, we'll talk more about. But moving right along. Man, so the last episode, of course, was the WandaVision, which I feel really had a lot to say, both on that technical aspect, although the technical aspects of this were interesting as well, especially when we get into how they create the fights. But I really feel that where this one separates itself, Wanda I felt was very much, it was an internal story. It was a looking inward story. This one I really feel, even though there is that personal struggle, it is the personal struggle outward. So in the sense that, you know, WandaVision was the personal struggles coming inward and really was the world pressing inward and how Wanda deals with that. This is really Sam, because it is Sam's story, pushing outward from the world he's in, and if he can push himself past where the world has put him. You know, the world has put a heavy mantle on his shoulders at this moment. You know, the world put that shield, and you can argue, you know, Cap put that shield on him, but, you know, it's the world that gives that shield that weight.
Right. It's the need that was there, and he was in that position, so it was thrust on him. He has to take it up.
Exactly. And exploit what that means.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, the world needs him to do it, but the world doesn't want him to do it. So he's in an interesting place, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if nothing else, that's the crux of, and to be fair, that's kind of the point, is that the world doesn't want what it needs. The world needs a hero. And a hero, it needs to be noted, is very different than a soldier. Because, and here's the thing, Carly is a soldier, just like Wyatt, or just like John. They have their ideologies, they have their orders, they have their plans, and they go. A hero is the person who steps outside of the conflict and says, how do I do the most good? How do we change the narrative?
I would argue that same motivation applies to the villains as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, invariably, yes. Although, again, and for what it's worth, you can be a soldier and a hero. You can be a freedom fighter and a hero. It comes down to, when do you start to look at the other side? And I think that's the difference between the hero and the villain. Because the villain is so certain of their righteousness. They never ponder the larger question. So,
it forces you to live in this black and white world where if I have to think of myself as right, someone else has to be ultimately wrong. I can't be this righteous person without a villain, without an enemy. So you have to have one. And if there isn't one, often that one is something is put in its place to give you the justification to enact what you think is right.
Exactly. And that is the problem that you have with that hero villain narrative. And it's interesting. You talk about heroes and villains, you can talk about antagonists and protagonists, but in the end, you can be a hero against the world, but I don't think you could ever be a villain against the world. I think the villain always has to have this end goal. I think that's what really differentiates the hero from the villain. The hero is being heroic just because you need to be a hero. We need to right wrongs. We need to do good in this world. Whereas the villain imagines an endpoint of that doing good, that when they get to that last place, when their means, when they finally achieve what they wanted to achieve, now they can say, well, now we're done. We don't have to fight anymore. We don't have to do anything anymore. We can just say we're done. And I think arguably they can't. I think arguably that really, if you're a hero, there is never going to be a day where you get to put down the shield. Which is why my own personal fan theory is that when Steve goes back and lives with Peggy, that becomes a branching timeline, and he just keeps right on heroing. He has kids with Peggy, but he frees Bucky. And actually, my honest belief is that the person we see dancing, that is Steve, but then he goes and frees himself and says, okay, you get to be with Peggy. I'm going to go keep on heroing. And then you have a world that has 2 Captain Americas for a while and probably make the world just an amazing place. And then it's like, well, they've been waiting for me back in my universe. I better get back to that. It's like, okay, man. Hey, yeah, give your friend Sam the shield. It's like, yeah, sure, man. That's great. That's nice. It's a good shield.
That's good. I could just imagine like a tag team of 2 Captain Americas.
Captain's America, why not, man? Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, well, that's like my one what if I would love to see is, I'd love to see, what Cap did when he went back and hung out with Peggy, but I would love to see the Cap story where he doesn't go into the ice and he does have that dance with Peggy, and then they go, and then he just keeps on being Cap throughout, the 40s into the 80s, and all the problems he solves. Like he finds out about the experiments with the with Isaiah Bradley, and he puts a stop to it. But then, or he brings Isaiah Bradley in and says, "No, you're with me now. Every time I'm fighting, you're fighting by my side. We're brothers now." And they keep on pushing the world to a better place. That's my what if that I want to see. But we'll see if Marvel decides to do that. But yeah. What really intrigued you about this? I think the most interesting
thing, aside from a lot of the special effects stuff, like Falcon's costume and how the fabric had to be CGI'd to not puff out in certain spots, I thought that was kind of interesting. But I think the most interesting part to me was Bucky talking about how he approached the character from an actor's perspective, and saying, I went back and watched the other movies and thought to myself, if an audience is watching these three movies in succession, I want there to be some sort of commonality and some thread between the characters. And to hear the director and everybody else talk about how studiously he approached the character was really cool to me.
Yeah. On that point, now this is one of the big questions and controversy, and it's not really a controversy, it's one of these manufactured controversies. That at the end of it, of course, we get the title card of Captain America and the Winter Soldier. And, there's this, they didn't tell Spellman that that's what they were going to put as a title card. That came from on high. And it really shocked him. And he loved it because he did love that. Yeah, it is about. I won't say he loved it, but he appreciated that it is about Sam coming into that name, but that Bucky's still left as the Winter Soldier at the end. That's a question. Now, I actually think, and I think Spellman even said this in the interviews on it as well, was that. And this isn't in a symbol. This is extra. This is the extra reading, after school reading that I do. He said that, he understood that if they had both changed their names at the end, you wouldn't have gotten the weight of Falcon's name transition. But at the same time, it does feel like, Bucky accomplished a lot. Bucky did move himself forward. And I know people said it should have been, Captain America and the White Wolf. I think it should be Captain America and Bucky. Because they call him...
He's trying to say, I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. And you're part of my making amends. That whole
exactly.
thing.
He is James Buchanan Barnes now, and that's who he is, and... you can call him Bucky. That's cool. Because he's Bucky. That's his name. Yeah.
The other thing was, I thought it was interesting to hear, was that the director, the guy with the crazy hair?
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's the writer, cool. Mr. Spellman.
The writer. Oh, that guy's cool.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk about, the perspective they took on Isaiah Bradley, and how they took care to say that, even though what he had to say was difficult to hear, but they didn't want to paint that perspective as wrong, even though somebody had to come up and take seemingly not necessarily an opposing viewpoint, but not the same viewpoint, but that they both could exist. And that's something I felt as I was watching it, and to hear how carefully they thought about it and for it to land so well on me was really nice to hear. That part I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I think all around it's really, it's an excellently told story without a doubt. And, I think, and I think between Spellman and, Carrie Scogland, she's the white lady, you see, who is the director. They were really open and active in telling this story, and in fact, most things I've read on this says that when they were discussing how far they wanted to push a lot of these narratives, Carrie was always the one saying, no, go further. What do you really feel? Be honest with it. And, and really lifting up and empowering her writers, which is what a good director should do. That's what you want. Yeah, I mean, it was great. I do want to talk a bit about the truck fight scene. And it is interesting because the truck fight scene and the issues with Puerto Rico. Because they were all set to shoot a lot in Puerto Rico, and then they had like a couple of earthquakes in Puerto Rico and had to completely shift production. And then after they shifted production, then they've got COVID in Prague. And it was, I mean, this show was beset. And
I thought they would go more into detail about narratives that they had to leave out on the table. I thought we would get a bit more of that. I was surprised that we didn't get more. Oh, this is a story we wanted to explore, but we had to leave it there because we didn't have time to film it. I wish there was more of that.
I get the feeling that is an overstatement. I think people want there to be more.
Yeah.
And they point to the ADR because there's a lot of ADR in this. But, that's, I forget exactly what it's saying, but it's when you hear someone talking and you don't see them talking, especially when they're giving exposition. So you'll have a lot of key scenes where the people don't say it, but they'll be focusing on someone else reacting to them saying it.
Okay, I gotcha. Like off-camera dialogue that you only see the other person's reaction to.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, and it is a thing about it is, anyone who's had to shoot has had to like have their production cut short and sort of condense it rapidly, knows that you can still tell your story, but you didn't get the shot, and so much of your story has to be done with ADR. It's just a reality of filmmaking. If you ever filmmake on a budget, that's like, yeah, we always said we were definitely doing this. This is all ADR, but we're going to create it so it looks like a coherent scene. So I think they told the story they wanted to tell. I think they probably wanted, Maridanya to have more of a story because she is a named actress, but I don't know if that extra story was going to be more than what we got. I think it would have been, because everyone say, oh, there was a subplot about like, a virus that was killing people. It's like, well, yeah, but actually any refugee story, you're going to have viruses that kill people because viruses and bacteria, that's what happens when people are in.
And not just that, they're always planting seeds, they're always planting seeds for stuff they're going to revisit. So
yeah,
I'm not cover it now, but you'll hear about it later.
Yeah, but it is neat. One of the things I really liked is when they were discussing Sam's last speech.
Yeah.
And they go into the fact that, it doesn't start as a speech. It starts as him just talking to someone. And then it just goes into the pontification. It goes into that because suddenly he realizes he's not just talking to this one guy. Because really the whole thing is like he's talking to the one guy and the one guy's not listening. The one guy's like, hey, don't worry, we're going to have all those refugees back in their home countries tomorrow morning. I guarantee it. It's like that was never the point. That wasn't what you were supposed to be doing. And he gives his speech, and it does that nice transition. And it kind of reminds me, it's a thing about, the I Have a Dream speech. Which is that, it wasn't the speech Martin Luther King was going to tell. He had like bits of that speech that day. He had done bits of the speech before.
Okay.
It was something he'd been workshopping for a while, but he didn't feel was quite right. And then as he's giving his big speech, on like what we think of as the I Have a Dream speech, he's giving his typical boilerplate speech. It's going okay, but the crowd isn't feeling it, and you're a performer, when man, they're not getting it. And what's her name? She was a very famous. I want to say it was the opera singer, or was it the Gospels? Anyway, there was and I'm blanking on her name right now, but she says, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And he says, "Oh, the dream. Yeah, I have a dream." And then he goes into the whole "I have a dream" speech.
Is that right?
That is true, because basically this other performer who could see him struggling says, do this.
Someone shouted out a request, and he said, "Yeah, let's play that one.
Okay, we're gonna do that one."
Wow.
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was the right one for this, but we're gonna do it. And the idea
is there video of this?
Oh yeah. If you actually
I can't wait to see this.
If you listen to it, I wish I want to. Was it Mahalia Jackson? I want to say is the woman who shouts. She says, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And
what a cool little tidbit.
Because he had given that
right.
Given that speech
but
before.
I mean,
so
as poets go, as performers go, as preachers go, you have your sermons, you have your performances. I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah,
but what a cool little thing.
And to me, that's kind of the point of it. It's like how you're doing this, and then you realize there's more to be told, and you realize, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm on a national stage now. I can't just do the normal. I've got to really give the big speech. I've got to have my Captain America moment. I've got to have my Martin Luther King Jr. moment. And to me, that's what he does there.
Yeah, because in a sense, he's speaking for everybody, right? He's letting them know, here, I got this guy in my sights, and I'm saying everything to him that we want him to know.
Yeah, and again, and what I also like about it is it's not that, because the guy says it's more complicated or it's this or that, and he doesn't deny that it's complicated because he knows it's complicated. It's like, yeah, guess what? Everybody's life is complicated. Right. Says what you're feeling is powerlessness, which is what everybody feels every single day.
Now do your job.
Yeah, do your job because we're all powerless, but you have been entrusted to be the hero. 5 or 6 times. It's not every day. Get up, brush your teeth, eat a hero. Eat cornflakes, a hero. No. 5 or 6 times. You have to be the hero. That is, to me, the best line on heroism ever. That's from, of course, Deadpool. Colossus to Deadpool. It's just great because it's just like, no, everyone thinks be a hero. It's all the time. Brush your teeth, a hero. Eat your cornflakes, a hero. No. 5 or 6 times you get to be a hero. So always be the hero. And that is the moral of both Deadpool and Captain America. But you weren't looking for that connection. I do gotta say, I loved the technical stuff about the truck fight.
Yeah.
And just because it's one of these things where when you're watching it, there's not a point where you think, oh, that looks fake. Oh, they're not really on the truck. I mean, I know they're not on a truck driving at 30 miles an hour, but But you
don't get a chance to think about it. There's too much fun stuff happening, and it's done really well that you're just like, you're just going along. You're perfectly happy to go along for the ride. Nothing sticks out at you that makes you go, hey, but wait a second, And I think that is an art in itself. That suspension of noticing stuff.
And for what it's worth, one thing that Marvel is known for, especially since Daredevil, is the hallway fights. And we saw that in Winter Soldier in the elevator fight. And the idea of the closed space fight. And that is a Marvel signature. And it was particularly interesting in this one because it is that hallway fight turned on its head. Because it is closed, but not because there's no walls. But not because of the walls. It's closed because if anyone falls off, they're gone. And so all the people have to stand in the same area believably, fight believably, and stay on the truck believably. And that is what makes it really an amazing fight, that truck scene.
Right, because it kind of is a hallway scene fight without the claustrophobia. But as a metaphor, the claustrophobia is still there because you still have that anxiety about your space.
Well, yeah. Well, it's replacing claustrophobia for agoraphobia or acrophobia. Really, it's like,
That's pretty cool.
it's a hallway fight, but it's on a speeding truck going at 90 miles an hour.
That's a great thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if somebody sat there and thought, "That's our staple. Let's see how we can turn this on our head." He's like, "I got it. We do the hallway fight, but on a highway."
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And to be fair, it makes perfect sense when one of your character's powers is flight, and you're trying to showcase that flight. So that I thought was really, really amazing. I have to say, this is probably the most comics accurate superhero suit we have seen to date, where it is literally just Falcon Cap's suit. Like, it is the same colors. I mean, and like the whole time when I'm seeing it, the first time I'm seeing it, I'm thinking, man, I am certainly hoping vibranium mesh doesn't stain, because there is way too much white on this suit.
That's funny.
Yeah, well, I think about that. I do laundry a lot, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, none of my. It's like anytime I see a white shirt, it's like, no, you can't wear white ever. White is not a color you wear. But it looked great. It looked brilliant, and it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Because that was really interesting. Was like everybody kept going on and on about the heel turn from Sharon Carter, and they kept talking about what it means for the legacy of Cap, and that. Not one time did anybody mention what it means for the legacy of the name Carter, like Peggy Carter, what it means to like, a hero of our country, and then this person, and nobody, like, that's not a conversation. I think that's a really big conversation. Like, I think that's the biggest offense by turning heel is against the family name.
Well, although I guess, and there's been articles on this about how man, a family name really lets you fall upwards, because let's face it, there's a big emphasis placed on the Carter name. Now, exactly, and this is my thing, because to me, and, they've been a bit more explicit saying Sharon is the power broker of late. Right. I still feel that there's just enough linguistic room where you can see this heel turn being a little more complex than it first seems. Because, as I've said, I don't think there is a power broker. I think Sharon in Hightown is part of that story, but that at the end of the day, that story is its own thing.
So you think maybe she's using this as an opportunity to go deep undercover, like be a triple agent?
I mean, my honest opinion is, because here's my honest. So this is pure fan theory corner.
All right,
fan theory corner. Here is my thing. I actually think that when we look at this, it's actually about trying to manage threats by creating them. And so I get the feeling there's this idea that, the problem with super soldiers is they're still in charge of their powers and they can take their powers and leave. And you could make an army of super soldiers. Honestly, it's probably not as hard as you think. But the fact of the matter is that, we can create them, but the problem is that people being people, they get angry, they get problematic, they get, they do whatever they're going to do, and then they just start punching things that we don't want them to punch. It's like John Walker, him having the super soldier serum isn't in and of itself a problem, but if he's going to go kill a guy on national TV, that's the problem. Problem isn't even that he kills a guy, it's that he kills him with all the cell phones around. That's when, that's when the problem fails. Because if a guy like John Walker, our blue ribbon Boy Scout, soldier,
our mascot
is going to be the one who's going to lose himself in that moment, it's not worth it. But if now we shift all of the villains to tech-based weapons, we can keep the cheat codes, and we can turn them off when we need to. And I think that's actually going to be what's going to happen in the Armor Wars. When that comes, it's going to be about how Sharon and Valerie, the Countessa, are
Valentina?
selling.
I think it's Valentina.
Yes. Oh, we got to talk about her. Are selling this high-end tech secrets to villains expressly so they can control when the heroes beat up the villains. Because it gives you that great propaganda. If your heroes are going in there and they get the cheat codes, and suddenly, and then of course, then you'd have a great storyline. Then, if you really want to introduce someone like the Wizard or Dr. Doom, someone who realizes what's going on, and they start breaking the cheat, they start jailbreaking all the tech that the villains have, so that now all of a sudden the cheat codes aren't working, and that becomes this whole other bag of hammers. So. Lots of things to discuss for those future episodes of the MCU. But let's talk about the Contessa Valeria Allegro.
Valentina. I think it's Valentina.
Oh, Valentina, that's right. The Contessa Valentina de Allegro de Fontaine.
Yes.
With the blue instead of the green, because she used to have the white streak. Now it's a blue streak, because, It's the 20s, man. Nobody, if you get that gray streak, you color that. You color that. You make it purple. You say, I know who I am. But man, I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this moment. Because she is
perfect for it.
She is perfect for it. And she's going to be glorious. They say she's in Black Widow. We'll see how much.
I love that they called her like a female Nick Fury. I like that idea.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. One of the things about Nick Fury, he does a lot of bad things, but he thinks it's for the greater good. And that is the thing that I think you have to remember about heroes and villains, is that sometimes they do it for the greater good, and sometimes they do it for their own purposes. Like, that's always my thing. Like, there is nothing that John Walker did that Zemo didn't also do in this whole thing. But Zemo keeps on getting a pass, and even Sam and Bucky give Zemo a pass.
Right, but because Zemo knows who he is, and he acts accordingly. John Walker doesn't know who he is, and presents himself as one thing to the world, but doesn't really have a sense of who he wants to be. So that part is what throws people off, and when he does things people don't think he has a right to do, that it throws them off. When Zemo does things, you're like, yeah, that he said he was going to do that. That makes sense.
I mean, one can argue it. Yeah, I just, it's a pet peeve of mine that, it's like, Zemo does everything, and everyone's like, oh, let's go to Sokovia. It's like, no, we're not going to Sokovia. I know it's a funny bit. It's a great bit. That Saturday Night Live is kicking themselves. Oh, how did we not think of Sokovia? Because that's basically his pitch to host Saturday Night Live right there.
We expect more from John Walker. We expect more.
We do.
Well,
Well, I mean, I didn't, but I read the books.
No, I'm saying people in that world. If there's a John Walker in my world, I expect more. Yeah. That's why I wouldn't be upset. I was like, oh yeah, Zemo. Yeah, of course. That makes sense. Tell me John Walker, because I was like, man, God, I wish he hadn't done that.
Here's what I'll say. They should have turned Zemo over to the Dora Milaje at that moment. They should have said, yeah, no, he's rogue, man. He shot a guy who could have given us very valuable information because he was so mad about super soldiers. So, no, take him. We don't want him.
And it doesn't make the Dora Milaje look really good to say that, he escaped from them twice. Like, or do they just, Well,
they eventually get him back, It's...
I don't know. If you're going to paint them as like, then carry that through and make that count, I guess.
To be fair, they're fighting a super soldier and a Captain America and a Falcon. So,
all right, fair enough.
It's like they're going to say, well, because our allies attacked us and he escaped,
right.
And then we got him we knew where he was. We were and then just to be kind to Barnes, because we weren't letting him go away this time, we let Barnes have a moment and make his amends, and then, but it's just,
yeah,
that's that. But
they're not super powered, right?
No, they aren't. I mean,
well trained.
That's actually one of those interesting questions about being a super soldier, because in the comics there is this whole idea that you actually can be a super soldier if you follow a very strict exercise regime and eat, perfectly balanced meals and, just dedicate it to yourself. Yeah, being a super soldier, it's a lot of hard work, but it's actually not that hard. It's like, these 10 steps will turn you into a super soldier if you do it your whole life. And of course, the Dora Milaje are people who have done this their whole life. They have been training their whole lives. And,
so they're like just a team of Batman.
Exactly. Basically,
super cool weapons.
And that's it. It's like Batman, he is peak level human just because he is a peak level human, because he makes himself be a peak level human. But yeah, so that's that. But yeah, I mean, I love the Dora Milaje in this, and I love hearing Ayo. Well, I forget the actress's name, but her character's name is Ayo. Just how I love it. They call me, I show up, I don't even know what it is, but I know it's going to be good. I get to put on the yeah.
All the other Dora Milaje, we all communicate, talk to each other. We stay fit. We stay working out because we never know when they're going to call us. We want to be fit for the role because they understand.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, because I'm sure they're all professional actresses, stunt women, dancers, your normal ballyhoo, and I'm sure they make a nice bit of coin, not Robert Downey Jr. money, but I'm sure they make a good bit on the residuals at least. Being in these films and being in these TV shows and being those people who come in and be a part of it. So that's pretty awesome when you think about it. But yeah, so anyway, anything else you want to talk about for this episode, Mozzie?
No, I think we got to it. I think the other thing that I think is important, that I thought was important, was the care they took with talking about the sensitive issues that we're all dealing with, and they handled them with care, and to see the amount of care they took with all of it, you could see why it came off so well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it, and this is what I always said. There is this aspect that is there's more sides to this than just even just the idea of rich bankers are bad, which is and it's not to say rich bankers aren't bad. Rich bankers are definitely people that are playing the system to their advantage, but at the same time, there's this quality to it that is but actually within this complex story, there are these other parallels that aren't being considered because people don't really ever consider the story of the Returned, because we really haven't gotten any story that really talks about the story of the Returned, except actually technically Sam's is the story of the Returned, and a guy who suddenly says, no, your family business is about to go under, and no, you can't get a loan because you have no credit history, and we wrap that into that story of just being black in America, but really there is actually the secondary aspect of the guy who's coming back. He thinks a hero from this world that forgot about him for 5 years. And now he's got to just rebuild it, even though, and of course that is that parallel again to that idea of soldiers coming back from World War I and World War II, black soldiers who had the crosses burned on their lawns because, being a hero only takes you so far. And even though being a hero in this world does take Sam a little bit farther, you have this combination of factors that is both, okay, yes, you are a hero. We're not going to act like, we don't like you because you're black, but we are going to say, but you are returned, and you don't have what we're looking for in what it takes to provide this loan collateral. So it's interesting, and I wish they'd actually done a little bit more to humanize the Returned in this. If anything got dropped in the story, I think that's actually a story point that they probably did drop, because I think that was probably way more nuanced than they were ready for.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because we really, like I said, we really haven't gotten much about Because the only returns we've seen have been superheroes. We haven't seen really Aunt May's story of being returned. Because when we get that in a little bit of Far From Home, it is just the idea of, oh, hey, I showed up in their apartment and this woman thought I was having an affair, and it's a haha funny joke. But you realize, oh, I just lost my New York City apartment. I may not be able to find a place to live now. I've got to somehow navigate this world. I don't know if I'm going to easily be able to. So there's a story there that we're waiting for. I don't know if we're ever going to get it, though, because next up is Loki, and that's going to be its own bag of hammers, without a doubt. It is going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it. But that's not till June, so we're going to have a little bit of a break between these Marvel shows, but we'll fill it with other things on Full Stream Ahead. And enough said, we'll wait for more Marvel. Anyway, Mozz, any final thoughts tonight?
No, I think we got to it.
I think we got to everything. I do want to thank our lovely sponsors, Tweaked Audio. If you are listening to this podcast and it sounds crystal clear, it's probably because it's on Tweaked Audio. And if it's not, you should go down into the show notes or just go to tweakedaudio.com. You don't need the show notes for this. Go to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code Southgate at checkout to get a discount on the excellent high-quality headphones they do provide. Likewise, use that same coupon code Southgate upon checkout over at hunterkiller.com. Have a real escape room delivered to your house. I mean, it's a bunch of clues that you have to solve to help Michelle Gray solve a cold case, but it's a lot of crazy fun. If you like to play Clue as a kid, this is like adult Clue, and you'll probably enjoy it. If you like serial killer podcasts, this is putting you into your own serial killer podcast, so that should be fun. That's hunterkiller.com, coupon code Southgate. And if that does interest you or not, go down to our show notes, click on the Amazon link, go to Amazon. I'm sure there's something there you like. Costs you nothing, helps out the show because they know where you were beforehand. And while you're there, pick up or check out and pick up Pod Life, the book written by the Southgate Media Group family about why and how we podcast. And it's available both in digital and paperback. All right, Mozz, and if anyone does that and they want to talk to you, how can they find you?
Or they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's Mozzmanzor.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Poz once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things like Legends of Tomorrow, I'm hoping, and other things soon. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieSsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. Ladies and gentlemen, you have come to another end of another podcast where we have learned of all the things in the MCU. Until next time, we just say, enough said.